Good morning. We are back. Network Plus practice exam number 16 going live. That's five more questions. Five more questions to help you pass your certification exam. Let's see if we can't stump you. Let's see if we can't stump you on this one. Let's get right to it. Question number one. A network administrator receives an alert that unauthorized personnel have accessed a critical server in the data center. The administrator checks the physical access logs. Which of the following should the administrator implement to prevent unauthorized physical access to servers in the future? Remember, we're not always going to give you those acronyms. We kind of gave you one on this one. We provided you ACL, right? Don't be fooled. I want you to look at this, right? As you're answering this question, as you're looking at it, right? What is the question trying to do? Remember, CompTIA will never lie to you. They'll never lie to you on their questions. The questions will always be set aside to where you can answer it, but they will mislead you. They will throw information at you that you don't technically need, and their goal is to get you to second guess yourself. And so I want you, as you're going through the exam, I want you to pick an answer, be confident with it, and above all else, right? If you're torn between two, what's your gut feeling tell you? And believe it or not, your gut feeling is usually right. It's usually right. So yeah, all right. Let's answer this one as always. As always, if you need more time, you can always pause the video. You can pause the video. All right, let's answer this one. A network administrator receives an alert that unauthorized personnel have access to critical server in the data center. The administrator checks the physical access logs. Which of the following should the administrator implement to prevent unauthorized physical access to the servers in the future? Let's start with D. Increase logging to track users accessing the network. Well, if we read the question is asking us which of the following should the administrator implement to prevent prevention. Does increasing the logs, does that prevent anybody? No, that is a detective control, right? Logs, audits, detective control. That's not a preventive control. And so that's not going to do anything, because I can tell you that there are many times when I worked in private industry where I wouldn't bother to sign in because they didn't enforce it. And so human error, I would just walk by and no one would say anything. Was it right? No, probably not. Did I do it? Yeah, all the time. All right, that means D cannot be correct. C, disable server ports for users without physical access. Ooh, that might be a good one. Let's put that one on the back burner. That's a possible. It's a possible. Implement access control lists for locking racks. Okay, so we have another list. From a physical standpoint, can we control access, right? Does that mean, is that another logging implementation, or are we talking about a firewall? Because it says implement access control lists for locking racks. It could go either way with the way it's worded, but again, we still have the same problem. What does a list do? Does that mean I check in with security and security tells me I can access it or not? Is that on the physical side, or is it on the electronic side where if I don't have the right username and password, right? Because those are both access control lists. They really are. It doesn't matter though. In this case, it's wrong. It doesn't matter because again, it's a list, right? And we can bypass that list. All right, and then use biometric authentication for rack access. Ooh, that's a good one too. All right, so we have A and C. A and C are our possibles. Which one do you think it is? Well, if you answered C, I got some, bad news for you. That's not correct. It's going to be A. It's going to be A. Use biometric authentication for rack access. Why is it not C? We can disable the server ports for users without physical access, but if they don't have physical access, then we don't need to worry about it, because the question says, which of the following should the administrator implement to prevent unauthorized physical access? And disabling ports for users without physical access means that they already don't have physical access. And so it really doesn't accomplish anything. That would be the term. Remember, misleading. That's what CompTIA is trying to do. If you got it right, pat yourself on the back. Give yourself a crisp high five. Let's move on to question number 2. A network technician is tasked directly connecting 2 routers in a lab environment for testing purposes. Which of the following types of cables should the technician use? Which type of cable? It says cables. I'm going to tell you it's only one. There's only one correct answer on this one. I'll give you a second. Do you know what type of cable? What cable would I utilize to connect 2 routers in a lab environment for testing? Which one do I want? What do you think? I know it's a little bit weird when we start looking at it from this perspective. I want you to think about this, right? And again, we're trying to make it. Well, we're trying to answer the question within 30 seconds. That's our goal. 30 seconds, 45 seconds max is what we're trying to do. We don't want to really go over that 45-second mark. So if we don't know, then let's rule out, flag, guess, move on. We do not want to spend a lot of time. We don't want to spend a lot of time going through these questions if we don't need to. All right, let's answer this one, shall we? Let's go into it. Question number 2, a network technician is tasked with directly connecting 2 routers in a lab environment for testing purposes. Which of the following cable should the technician use? Let's start with A. Rollover cable would be incorrect. I feel like that's an easy one to get rid of, and I probably shouldn't have gone that route first, but that's okay. Rollover cable would be where we take and we flip the Ethernet cable, right? We flip it. So if 8 goes to pin 1, 7 goes to 2, so on and so forth. We just reverse it, right? That would be a rollover cable. That is not what we're going to use. We're not going to use rollover cable. Rollover cables are utilized for connecting to the device, right? So a lot of times we don't use rollover cables for data transfer. That's not what we're used for. Maybe we want to get in there and configure a device. Maybe we want to configure something. That's what we would utilize a rollover cable for. And so it's not going to be a rollover cable. Straight through cable, well, straight through cable sounds exactly like it is. It's a standard cable. And so if we have an Ethernet cable, it would just go straight through. The pins and the codes are how it's supposed to be. And so there's nothing really over the moon for it. That leaves crossover and coaxial. Crossover and coaxial cable. Let's get right to it. Coaxial cable, well, that would be what we use for our cable TV. That means crossover cable is what we would utilize. And why? What is a crossover cable? Crossover cable takes the transmit from one side and now makes it receive. And so you're transmitting on one side, receiving on the other side, and so you can more accurately or more efficiently send the data back and forth. A lot of machines don't require it anymore. We used to have to do it all the time on older machines. Now they're intelligent. They figure out what's going on, and then they change it on their own. It's actually quite nice because I can tell you how many crossover cables I've made in my career. There are a butt ton of crossover cables out there, probably poorly made by yours truly. I'm kidding. But yeah, I did make a butt ton of them. And there we go. Question number 3. A company allows employees to connect their devices to the corporate network under a BYOD policy. What is a BYOD policy? Well, we'll tell you in a minute. Which of the following security measures should be implemented to mitigate risks? So we have a couple. It's pretty straightforward answers and questions on this one. Do you know what a BYOD policy is? If you don't, we're going to tell you in a minute. Let me get my big fat hat out of there. I think it's just devices. Yeah, it's just devices. So I'm not hiding anything on G, right? So let's I don't know. I kind of want to give you a little bit more time because there's a lot more in there. So I'm gonna go off on a tangent. When you're getting these select 2 questions, it really is a matter of understanding that you need to go through each individual question and rule it out. This is where that whiteboard comes in handy, or that piece of paper comes in handy. You can go through and you can mark the ones that you think it might be, right? And because if you end up with like 3, then you don't have to go back through and reread them all, right? You can go, okay, I think it's A, I think it's B, right? I think it's this one. The problem is on the machine, which give or take, right, is when you're going through on CompTIA and they have a select 2, you can only select 2. So if you're looking at a 3rd or 4th option, you really can't see what's going on. So if you need to, you can have that whiteboard, you can mark the 2, and then if you find a 3rd or a 4th one that you like, you can put it on your whiteboard and then read all 4 and kind of figure out which direction you want to go. All right? All right, let's answer this one. Pause video if you need to. A company allows employees to connect their devices to corporate network under a BYOD policy. Bring your own device policy. Which of the following security measures should be implemented to mitigate risk? Well, we can implement an MDM system. That would be a mobile device management system. Does that fall under BYOD? Does a BYOD, bring your own device, fall under MDM? A maybe. Let's mark this one as a maybe. A maybe on this one. So let's keep A on the back of our mind. Block all personal devices from accessing the corporate network. Okay, so if we have a BYOD policy, that's a bring your own device. It is a personal device. If it had a section on there that added to it that basically said, unless approved by the vendor or the corporation, I would like this answer a lot more. But seeing how we want people to bring their own devices, probably not the best route. So probably not B. Require MFA for all network logins, multi-factor authentication. I mean, that's a pretty standard thing that we should be doing already. I like the answer. I just feel like there's probably a better one out there. So I'm going to put C on the back end too. So we have A and C so far as our possibles. D, enforce the use of corporate approved antivirus software. I like corporate approved antivirus software. Can we enforce it on a personal device? Can we require it? We could, but then we have to pay for it, right? And so there's no guarantee that they're going to use it. We only have so many licenses. We could definitely do it. I like the answer. It's just, it costs a lot of money to implement. It's not as easy as just saying, oh, you have to do it. And we can't make our employees use corporate-owned or approved antivirus software unless we give them a wide list. And even then, we can't be sure that they did it because they're bringing their own personal devices. And so we can, but we can't. This is a tricky one. So I like D. I do. So we have A, C, and D. But is D better than MFA or MDM? That's the real question. I think MDM is going to be so far number 1. C would be number 2. Do I enforce core? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that I like C better than D. Set up a VPN for remote access. I like remote access. VPNs for remote access. We could even do it on our devices and make sure that they're on VPN or they can't have access to the internal network. And that's great and all, but will it fix the issue? So which of the following security measures should be implemented when we connect to, so we have to read through the question, right? Company allows employees to connect their devices to the corporate network under the BYOD policy. I like VPN. Do I like it better than multi-factor authentication? Because we already said MDM's better. No, I don't. I like VPN better. I like MFA better than VPN. I like MDM a lot better than I like VPN. And I like MFA more than I like VPN because multi-factor authentication is going to ensure that they are actually the user they're supposed to be. VPN, not so much, right? And so we can still use, if they get a hold of your username and password, they're just going to go through the same process. So VPN without MFA, kind of a waste. And so I would use MFA. Disable Wi-Fi access to personal devices. We can't do that. That is not something we're allowed to do. Could you imagine? I'll tell you what, if a company came to me and they said, yeah, you can use your own device, but you have to disable your Wi-Fi. I'd give them my middle finger and I'd walk away. I'd be like, no, then I'm just not going to use my personal device on your network. So you need to provide me one. And that's not what we want. So definitely not something we're going to do. Enforce password complexity policies on personal devices. Okay, so here's the thing. The personal device is personal. So we really can't enforce password complexity on a personal device. That's not something we can do. We can enforce password complexity on our systems that they're accessing with their personal devices, but we can't enforce it on the personal device itself. And so that's the trick. That's the trick right there. And so the answer has got to be A and C. A and C going to be our correct answers on that one. If you got it right, good for you. Good job. If not, that's okay. Did you learn something? That's all we ask. All right, moving on. Question number 4. A network administrator configures channel bonding on a wireless network to increase bandwidth for high-demand applications. Which of the following results would the administrator most likely see? What is channel bonding? I know. I went through the Network Plus point, right? So this is how I pick out questions. I go through and I randomly search for things. And I'm like, oh, what haven't we covered? Or what don't I remember? And channel bonding stood out to me. I was like, what in the world? I don't remember channel bonding. And so I grabbed a question for it because I was like, if I don't remember it, maybe you don't remember it. And so this one snuck up on me. I had to research on this one. And so I'm not afraid to admit it, right? We cannot be experts at everything. Don't ever expect yourself to be an expert at everything, right? We know some good understanding. We have some good understanding of everything that we come in contact with, but do we know everything? No. Even I, with a doctorate degree and CISP and multiple certifications, do not remember everything, and that's okay. It's okay. We can always do research. We're not required. We're not all Sheldon Coopers out there. Okay. Let's answer this one. A network administrator configures channel bonding on a wireless network to increase bandwidth for high-demand applications. Which of the following results would the administrator most likely see? Decrease latency. No. When we do channel bonding, what we're doing is we're taking multiple channels within the confine, right, within our spectrum, and we're putting them together. And this leads to increased bandwidth. That's a side effect of it, right? Because we have more channels. More channels mean more throughput. More throughput means more bandwidth. And so we have higher capabilities on our network. But there are also some problems with it as well. So decreased latency would not be a benefit of that, but it would definitely be possibly a detriment. And so decreased latency, no. For all that high demand, for all that bandwidth, we do have some problems. Increased interference with nearby networks. Maybe that's our right one. B is a possible. Reduced signal strength. Well, I would think that if I'm grabbing extra channels to put it inside my spectrum, then I would have increased signal strength, right? Because I have multiple spectrums. And so C would not be correct. Lower overall throughput. Well, I already gave this one away. I already said that increased throughput equals increased bandwidth. That means that B is our correct answer, and it is. One of the drawbacks of grabbing extra channels is the problem with interference, right? Nearby operating networks, same adjacent channels, especially in crowded environments, especially environments where we have a lot of Wi-Fi, a lot of other things going on, that could lead to some interference with nearby networks. And so B is going to be a correct answer on that one. And you know, I teach wireless, and I was not familiar with the term. I feel so stupid sometimes. But that's okay. That's okay. We learn everything. All right, my favorite type of question, the matching question. Match the following terms with their correct descriptions. We have multi-tenancy. We have elasticity, scalability, security implications, traffic shaping, and QoS. QoS. I have a feeling you're going to end up having to pause this one. I really do. Because I'm not going to give you 20 minutes to figure it out, right? Now, this would be a typical PBQ. I would expect to see something like this on our performance-based question for Network Plus. And so let's see if we can't answer this one. Let's start with number one, shall we? Let's start with number one, multi-tenancy. Or do we want to start with A? I don't know. What do you think? I know I'm talking to myself because you're not here, but I mean, I'm recording it and there's no audience, but I feel like let's start with A. Let's start with A. I like A because it's on the left-hand side, and let's just go with the English. All right. The ability of a system to automatically adjust its resource allocation based on demand, allowing for quick expansion or reduction of resources. What do you think? I would go with elasticity. Elasticity. We cannot talk today. A would be number two. Two is A. Let's go to B. A feature in networking that manages data flow to ensure certain types of traffic have priority over others, often used for voice or video services. Well, that's got to be QoS. That's got to be QoS, quality of service. That is like the predominant, that is like 100% QoS. B would be 6. All right, C, a network feature that delays or limits traffic to ensure bandwidth availability, often used to control network congestion. What do you think about that one? What do you think? What do you think C is? If you said traffic shaping, you would be correct. 5 is C. D, a computing architecture where multiple clients share the same infrastructure but are logically separated to ensure data privacy and isolation. I feel like that is a gimme. Which one of the left ones do we have? Well, multi-tenancy, right? Multi-tenancy. I cannot talk today. Oh my gosh. Okay, E, the capacity of a network or system to grow and handle increased demand without performance degradation. That's obviously scalability. That means F, considerations arise when multiple clients or users share resources, including ensuring proper isolation and access control to prevent data leaks or breaches. Well, that's going to be F is going to be 4. Security implications. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm having English problems today, but that's it. That is our answers. There we go. So what is it? It's A is 2, B is 6, C is 5, D is 1, E is 3, and F is 4. That's going to be our answers. All right, everyone. Until next time, I'm Dr. K. Have a good one.